obviously one of the big issues has got to be the economy. It's got to be industry in South Africa. And I want to mention one organization's name. It is ArcelorMittal. It is going to have a devastating effect. We've done multiple interviews on the closure of ArcelorMittal. Now, if you look at ArcelorMittal and you see what they provide, what they supply, and those downstream effects, automotive industry is probably going to be badly affected. But the company is still in talks, albeit despite stalled or collapsed talks with government of a possible 1 billion rand bailout. Right now, we don't know if that is going to happen. Mining, construction, and my last point being automotive. From the automotive world, no one better. AutoTrader CEO George Mienie has been very kind to come in and make some time for us this afternoon here on the show on eNCA. George, wonderful to see you again as well. So local manufacturing, if ArcelorMittal, if the bailout doesn't happen, in your world, what does that mean? How bad is this?
If I can predicate it on the fact that more than 50%, probably just more than 50% of a car is made of steel. So half of the car. If you account for the fact that if we had to import all of those metals and we manufacture locally, the marginal cost of those cars immediately go up. New cars, new car manufacturing, and 55% of the new cars that we manufacture in this country are exported. So our export market, so our balance of payments and the money coming into the country is going to be badly affected because immediately prices are going to go up. Are we going to be competitive on the global market? I think that's the first kind of the point of departure. The second, I think, important thing is the knock-on effects, as you mentioned earlier on, the downstream effects. We saw this post the pandemic, or during the pandemic and then post the pandemic. And I think exactly the same playbook might be followed should Mittal be or exit the country. And that is with the silicon chip shortages. The immediate impact was on new cars. New cars were in short supply, prices were going up, and what did the consumer do? Didn't stop buying and driving cars. In South Africa, we don't do that. Moved immediately to the used car market. And that caused a price bubble up until about the end of last year-ish, when used car price inflation started declining. And now we're seeing it starting to stabilize. This might cause the next wave.
Which might be good news for you as AutoTrader, and I'll get there in a moment, George, because supply and demand, even I remember Marketing 101 from Varsity back in the day. I want to get there because I want to mention some big names, and tell me if I've got the story wrong. VW, Toyota, and Ford. I had the chance to drive the Ford Raptor down to the State of the Nation address. Beautiful vehicle, very expensive. And it's considering that ArcelorMittal right now has not closed. I would hate to know what the Raptor would cost after it were to close, because we export a lot of those vehicles. It's a high-end luxury bakkie or a double cab, whatever you would like to call it. It might be unreachable for us here locally. That's the local impact, isn't it?
Well, the double cab at the moment, you will be pressed to find a double cab under R1 million right now. Second hand, yes, but you'll be pressed to find a brand new one. And when it comes to bakkies and double cabs, because of them being a workhorse, the amount of steel in that vehicle is more than the average car.
Sure.
So you can imagine the marginal cost of a double cab bakkie will go up more than the average vehicle.
So now, when you look at those brands, I mentioned Ford, because we were driving down to Sona, but I also think of Toyota, VW, locally manufactured, but also they are exporting it. Would it be fair to say, George, and maybe I'm catching you off guard, forgive me if I can, if you wouldn't mind, but the biggest market for those three brands, VW, Toyota, Ford, is the export market. Yes. It costs us more, it means it's going to cost more to buy it, which means our market is going to be impacted, isn't it?
Correct. We will be less competitive on the global stage. That's what these things cause. We will also be less competitive internally. I'll tell you why. Because imported vehicles like the Chinese vehicles, their prices are going to remain the same.
So Chery, Haval, GWM,
Amoda, JQ.
JQ, thank you, JQ. It's going to become cheaper for us.
It'll become relatively cheaper because the locally manufactured vehicles could increase in price. So you'd have second-hand car buoyancy and you'd have import buoyancy. And with that, there's a country that went down, not this very road, but went down the road of becoming a 100% importer, and that was Australia, lost all of its manufacture. Australia is a case study on where we shouldn't go.
Right.
Because it's a fully import country. They don't manufacture cars there.
They don't. Now, if you want to enter into the world of international relations, I listened to your podcast on AutoTrader.co, and maybe you'll be comfortable to answer this, but when you look at the new president of the US, Donald Trump, raising aluminium, I want to make sure I got my numbers right, raising aluminium and steel tariffs to 25%, it's going to have an impact on us globally. When a butterfly flaps its wings, we feel the effects here.
I always say, if the US sneezes, we get pneumonia.
Yeah.
And it's because we are 0.3% of worldwide GDP. And because of that, we are, unfortunately, can become very uncompetitive very quickly.
Could we become insignificant?
I don't think we could become insignificant. I mean, I'm no politician, so I can't speak to that. But I think we can't be economically as powerful as other countries in the world, unless, of course, we have good trade partners.
Let's be fair. You're wearing an AutoTrader shirt. New car sales are good. Of course, though, we've spoken about this, but you are in the world an incredibly successful website and a brand of AutoTrader. You move in the world of used vehicles. Isn't it a case of a 25% tariff and a possible closing of ArcelorMittal good news for AutoTrader?
Not really, Gareth. And the reason is because we are the marketplace between the seller and the buyer being the consumer. If the consumer can't afford to buy cars, AutoTrader also hurts. Because there's
no
less
money.
There's less money. Yeah. There's less throughput. There's less buying and selling. Potentially less dealerships, less vehicles through the system. And remember, we're a very small market. AutoTrader touches approximately 120,000 vehicles a month. That's a drop in the ocean compared to the likes of the UK, for instance. So I think our economy being the size that it is, as small as it is, we get very, very highly impacted by these things.
And very quickly, as I say goodbye, I mentioned I listened to your podcast. I've gone and found them on my phone as well. I know you talk about this and various other issues. I know you'll continue. Where are people finding you, George? How can they follow your discussions, your insight? Because you talk to other industry leaders as well, don't you? Where are we finding you?
So look me up on LinkedIn.
Okay.
You'll find me quite quickly under my name and surname, or go and visit autotrader.co.za.
As simple as that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great insight as well, and that's why I got George Mienie on to join us, because I listen to the podcast. Of course, I head over to the website. I read his articles as well. George, thank you very, very much for coming in and talking to us. AutoTrader CEO, as you heard, it's not just good news necessarily for him. It might not be good news for AutoTrader. Why? There are these second order effects and these downstream consequences if we see ArcelorMittal closing their doors, what they could mean for VW, for Toyota, and for Ford as well. George Mienie, thank you very much for coming in here on eNCA.